Hi, I'm Sarah Turcott, Area Community Liaison for Bridges by Epic.
And I'm Erica Lab, Executive Director of Bridges by Epic in Westford. Welcome to Bridges to Community. We're so happy to have you with us today. And we're also happy to have our very special guests. We have Erin DiCarlo, who is founder and president of Dovetail Companies. She's here with her teammate, Joe Scott. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. So happy to have you both here, especially on our Bridges to Community show. As you know, our show is aimed towards helping local seniors and their families with local resources and information, and could not be more thrilled to have you here today. Before we get into the content of what you're here to talk to today, I'd love for you to just share with the audience a little bit about Dovetail Services, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be part of this program. There's so many amazing resources out there for consumers throughout the aging process, but sometimes we don't know how to access it or navigate the process, so thank you for bringing us in. I created Dovetail Companies about 5 years ago to just streamline the very overwhelming, sometimes, thought of transitioning from a long-time home or successfully aging in place in your long-time home. And we say every day at Dovetail, it doesn't have to be so hard. There's fun and joy to have along the way. You become the author of your next chapter. And so our job is to help people gain clarity on what they want for their future, and then put a plan in place to execute that plan with ease, even if it's not always easy, because life is unpredictable and things will come up. But I think having the resources and information, the best decision is an informed one. So we're happy to be here today to be part of that information stage. And Joe Scott, my brother from another mother here, is our Director of Move Management Services. And Joe comes with many years of experience helping people plan a move or plan to age in homes successfully with some really unique but easy to use tips and tricks so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you guys are true trailblazers when it comes to supporting the seniors that you do each and every day. And we work with caregivers each and every day, and we know that it can be a very difficult task. And I love the topic that you guys brought to the table, because we often refer to it as downsizing, which for a lot of people, young or old, can feel very overwhelming. And I love how you brought it to the table as right-sizing, and I'd love to just jump into a little bit about what you consider right-sizing.
Yeah, I think the term downsizing has a negative connotation, and right-sizing sounds more positive and more comfortable for you, right? It's a right process for what's right in your life, what do you need to live, and what's right for you to have in your drawers. And an example of that is, a couple of years ago I was with a client and we were right-sizing her kitchen drawer, and she had 3 ladles, and they were all pretty much the same size. One of them had like an ornate bowl and a etched handle. Another one was a very plain silver one, and another one had a chunky sort of wooden handle. And I asked her, I said, do you need all 3 of these? And she said yes. The first one came from her mom's compote bowl. She didn't have the compote bowl anymore, but she still had that and said she used it. Sure. The second was for a gravy boat that she still had and still used. And the third was one she used for a hot fudge sundae bar.
Okay.
With her kids and her grandkids.
Which is very important.
Which is really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Each served its own purpose.
It did. And so she needed all 3 of those. Whether or not she's used them in her community since she's been there, I'm not sure. But we looked over and she had 2 corkscrews, the big silver corkscrews, and I said, do you need any of those? Just take one. And she said, no, I don't drink. So she didn't need that. So if we had taken the prescribed method of downsizing and said, you need 1 ladle that's that size and 1 corkscrew, it really wouldn't have worked for her. So a pretty simple example, but I think everyone needs to approach it as, what do I need to live my life right now? And if I have a long runway to go to either a new community or to a condominium or something smaller, think about where you're going to be. But don't get rid of those things that you need right now to live your life.
Sure. And we don't talk about this. We're not taught this in school. And so a lot of the families that we work with, and I'm sure you guys see this, is that they come in and they're frazzled and they don't know where to start and they might be angry or upset or resentful. You have all these emotions and no clear tools of like how to get from point A to point B.
Right. Sometimes I think people come embarrassed as well. Like, I have all this stuff, why didn't I just deal with it? And there are lots of reasons why they didn't deal with it. But I always say the good news is you have all of this stuff because you lived a good life.
Absolutely.
Right? And you have all of this stuff, as does everyone around you. They may have different things and different stuff, but they still have stuff. And I say it comes from, you know, monumental life events. You know, you had children, you bought a house, you had a job, you got awards, you had birthdays and got birthday cards. You know, you stayed current. You painted your I painted my bathroom 3 times in 20 years, and I still have those paint cans in my basement. But I stayed current. You know, people stay current. They buy the latest.
I was thinking of you yesterday. I was finding paint in the basement to touch up a few of my walls. My toddlers took a Sharpie marker and drew all over my bedroom wall. So anyway, I found paint cans from our last house. I said to my husband, "Why did you bring these?" He said, "Oh, you never know. You might need it."
You paid a mover to move it.
Yeah, we paid a mover to move those. But like, it just, that's what happens. And talk a little bit about, you don't just have your stuff.
Yeah, you don't have stuff, because it comes not only from things that we've collected, but it comes from people who thought we wanted something, or someone else's right-sizing efforts, you know, from our parents or our brothers or sisters, aunts, uncles, and they thought that we wanted that table or that dresser, and we really didn't, and didn't know how to say no to that. So I always say, don't put your friends and family in that same position. When you're going through this process, ask them, do you want that dresser? I thought that, you know, it was always in your bedroom, and I thought that maybe you would want it, and not assuming that they want it. And the reality is that they may not.
Absolutely.
Right?
Opening up that conversation.
And do you find people learn what they cherish? Like, that must be an interesting process for you with the families.
People absolutely learn what they cherish, and it's very different. And what's of value to me is not of value to someone else. And that value is not monetary, it's emotional. And Erin has a great story about
my grandmother's bracelet.
Her grandmother's
and this will lead into the work that you do as well. My grandmother passed away very suddenly. She was the caregiver to she was the healthy caregiver to my grandfather, who had Alzheimer's disease, and he went to wander out of confusion in the middle of the night one night, and she tried to stop him, which he kind of pushed her to the side. She fell and broke her hip and passed away within 6 weeks at the rehab. So very suddenly my family had to find a place for my grandfather, but then deal with the house, all the things in the house. And I remember flying home from college. I was very close to my grandparents. Flying home from college to make sure that some of the things in the home that I felt connected to were there. And I arrived, the dumpster was already full and taken out, and I was feverishly looking for my grandmother's kind of junk jewelry. It was thick enamel plastic bangles that were very popular in the 60s and 70s. She wore them all the time. And to them, that was not of value, and they were thrown away. To me, the noise of my grandmother's bracelets while she brushed my hair or made my lunch I would wear those to this day if I were able to save them. So not making the assumption of what people are connected to. But I always say, if you raised your children in the home that you're currently in, they may still be really connected to this process. And so allowing them to come into the fold, into the conversation, so that they can work through this. I think one of the largest challenges with aging in America is we kind of put our blinders on due to ageism. We don't talk about it, we don't plan for it, and then we may end up in a position where we need to make some choices. We need the emotional bandwidth to kind of go through our stuff, make our plan, and go through our life. And that's the really silver lining for us in our business, is to hear the stories behind the things. If you're an adult child and you are tasked with choosing on your parents' behalf the items to bring or right size, you haven't lived with them for a long time. You don't necessarily know what they're connected with, what's most important. So it's really important for our clients, the older adults, to work directly with them, to hear the stories and help identify what really is important.
Sure. Working as a team is most important, as you know, getting that caregiver team involved. And, you know, there's a lot of steps to this process as I hear you talking about it. And it just makes me, you know, think, you know, when people are thinking about this and having a conversation, what are people finding as the most daunting task? What's the hurdle the most hardest hurdle to get over with starting this process?
Well, if they're not in crisis, where it has to, you know, an immediate move has to happen, and you have to choose the things that your parents want to have with them. I think the most daunting task and the mistake that people make is they walk into the basement and think, I have to do this. Where do I even begin?
Yes.
Right. How do I start
So
with?
much.
And there's so much in a basement, right? It's not just like if you walk into a closet, it's probably full of clothes. You walk into a basement, it's full of hundreds of things. So we say that if you start, first of all, with those things that have little to no emotional value, you're not attached to those paint cans, right? Start with those paint cans. Get some kitty litter in them and throw them away. Right, find out what your city or town does on hazardous waste days to get rid of oil and oil paints and that kind of thing. But if you start really small in what we call manageable bites, you can really get fueled by the accomplishments that you make and the progress that you make.
You see the space coming.
You see the space coming.
Little by little.
And if you take an inventory of your items and take the entire inventory of that item, for example, pots and pans is a great one, right? I have pots and pans in my mudroom closet, in my kitchen, and in my basement.
Sounds like me.
Right? It sounds like a lot of us, right?
Yes.
If I take those pans, all of those pots and pans, that entire inventory, and put it out on the counter and say, what do I need? And right-size the rest, then I've taken a little bit out of the mudroom closet, my kitchen cabinets, and the basement. And if you do that with every item, right? Take the entire inventory of serving platters that you have, your entire inventory of clothing, right? Don't just take the clothing that's in your primary bedroom that you go to every day. Take that clothing from the guest room that you may have there, or the rack that you may have up in the attic. Take your entire inventory of clothing, and then you've taken clothing out of the guest room, clothing out of your primary bedroom, and clothing, out of the attic.
So you're trying to tell me that I don't need 9 umbrellas?
You don't.
Right.
No.
Got them everywhere.
Unless you're connected to those umbrellas. It's right-sizing.
If I have an umbrella collection, that's right. Yeah.
If you have an umbrella collection, think of new ways to maybe display them if they're
But if there's no emotional attachment,
It's a great item to tackle.
That's a good thing. Those are the types of things. Like you don't need that many.
Exactly.
Frying pans.
Give them a new purpose. Someone else can use that umbrella.
We have a gentleman, we recently did one of these presentations, and one of the guests said he keeps a donation box by his front door, and as he comes across things in his home, he has a white sheet on his couch. He'll take a picture of the item, send the picture to his kids, and say, does anyone want this? To which usually they say no. And once a week, the box is full of, it might have a pot or a pan or a picture or something, and he brings it to donation. And he said over the past year and a half, the amount of right-sizing that he's been able to accomplish has really fueled him. He's not trying to spend a weekend and, as Joe always says, boil the ocean by handling a whole basement, because you won't be successful. Talk about the things that you are heavily emotionally connected with. What happens when we dive into the...
You go down a hole. If you start with photographs, even if you don't think that you're attached to photographs, and you go into the closet and you get those photo albums that you haven't opened in 10 years, and you finally open them.
It's a wormhole. I've been there.
It's a wormhole. And then it's like, if I can't do this with these photographs that I haven't looked at in 10 years, how am I going to deal with the rest of this stuff? So don't start there. Start with the stuff that has no emotion, so you feel like you have made some progress. But it doesn't mean that you have to get rid of the photographs that are in that, in those albums. There are people we've done it for clients where we've digitized every photograph they have, either in an album or that have been framed.
Makes it a little easier.
And when they move to a community, they have a couple of frames in their living space in their bedroom
that photos.
Rotate pictures. And the thing that's great about that, especially if someone's new to a community, what a great conversation piece. To come in and say, oh, that's that trip I took to Italy. If those photos remained in a photo album, never would
people open them.
Yeah, never would you open
Unless
them.
you come to Bridges.
Unless you come to Bridges, right? but you never. But your neighbor may never even have seen that you went to Italy and have started.
But you may have forgotten.
Yeah, and if you're aging in place at home and you feel overwhelmed, you know, we're coming into spring. We're here, even though there's snow on the ground today. You're feeling overwhelmed. The clutter is kind of taking over. There's a definite energetic effect of the things around us and our belongings. If you feel like you have too many pictures on the wall, or there are albums that you wish you could see more, these are tips and tricks you can use at home. I think it's great to have a digital frame at home.
Right.
You know, if you're bringing in home care or just aging in place successfully at home, I think there's a lot to be said about, if there's a book that Joe talks of often, The Gentle Art
of Swedish Death Cleaning.
Yeah, I was going to ask about death cleaning because I've been reading about that. Yeah, would you share a little bit about that?
Well, it was written by a woman by the name of Margareta Magnusson in her late 80s at the time from Sweden. And she talks about the gentle art of death cleaning. And it sounds kind of ominous and, you know, I'm preparing myself to die. But she says the definition of that is preparing your home and getting everything in order the closer you come to leaving the planet. The day, you know, that day you're going to leave the planet. Sure. And I read that as the day we're born, we're a day closer. So, like, really the time is now. Like, deal with it all now.
Sure.
Right? I think about, you know, talking about photos and photo albums, and because people always think, oh, I have to get rid of it, I'm not going to have it. Well, you can have it. Take them all out of those photo albums, and they'll probably go into a shoe-size, you know, plastic box that you can still sort through, but it's taking up a third of the space.
It gives you a little more room to enjoy your life.
Exactly.
We're just so obsessed with things as a culture. We're in consumerism, and so then we get crowded by it. And almost to the point we can't breathe.
And are we living in this moment? To Joe's point, our things represent our life. So if I, in my earlier days, was a skier, or you talk about different hobbies, and so I still have the skis up in the attic, it's really the item. Are you stuck in the past? Can we show reverence to that experience and honor that experience in a different way so then you're comfortable with maybe moving on? And to Joe's point, you know, if gardening was always your thing, but now you're not doing it as much because it's not easy, there are some small fixes. Let's create some raised garden beds in your backyard. Or, you know, there's ways to still enjoy some of these hobbies without hanging on to the stuff that you associated with in the past.
Collect all the photos of your gardening.
Or your skiing.
Yeah.
Or your skiing, right?
And
then
put some up so that it's part. It shows that it's part of your identity.
Yeah, and it keeps that memory alive for you. And those skis then don't mean as much, right? You keep the memory alive by having maybe the photograph, which prompts people to talk about it.
Absolutely, and I just, you know, I love too when this whole conversation started, you know, talked about when you're looking and planning this right sizing, right, not diving right into those photos. It seems like that could be like a mistake, right? Starting with the photos could emotionally set you back. What are some, you know, other mistakes people might make or that might come up during the right sizing process that they could overcome? They
don't know, like, where to begin. So you take that inventory of pots and pans, or the inventory, a good example is sweaters. We talk about the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time you're probably going to use 20% of what you own. And we say, you know, because people say, I don't know, I like that one, I don't like that one. We'll put them all together, do the math. What's 20% of the entire inventory of sweaters that you have? Right? Maybe it's 15. Take those 15 out, and you're probably going to go to the 15 that you've worn most recently. And then you say, well, I sort of do like that one, and I do like that one. And then you end up with maybe 10 sweaters that have you have no use for, that you've pushed back in the closet every time you bought another one. Right? So I think then what happens is that people then have fewer. It may not be 20%. But it's certainly fewer than what they had when they started. And I think if you take that approach with every one of those items, like the entire inventory of something.
Your linen closet, I took the approach after hearing Joe talk about the 80-20 rule, and you can apply it to anything in your home, your medicine cabinet, your toiletries. So I took my linen closet. if you have more than one stack of towels, if there's a stack behind the stack, when are you ever getting to the second row?
stack.
You're just reusing.
Right.
It's like my husband's T-shirts. He has not 500, but it feels like 500 T-shirts.
Lay off the T-shirts, okay? Lay off the T-shirts.
Oh yeah, I've tried. I've tried to right size those T-shirts and he finds them. But he never gets to the others because he's just using the 20% of the 80%. So, and now, just visually now when I open the linen closet, I take a breath because it's not, you don't need all of that. And it really, like Joe said, you start with one, if it's the sweaters or the pots and pans or the linens or my husband's T-shirts or our care products, just 80-20, 80-20. And to Joe's point, you might end up with a little bit more than 20%, but it's much better than the 100% you started with.
And it changes your mindset.
It does change your mindset. And it's not, right sizing isn't one and done. Right, you take it, you start here, you establish what your schedule is. If you're going to move in a year and a half, like set it up for by quarter, what you're going to do in that time, and then go back and start again. Look at those sweaters again and really say, did I wear those ones that I thought I was going to wear? Right. So it's like, you know, right sizing is cyclical, but it's also, it doesn't mean you stop living, right? I said that you get everything, you've collected all these things because you've lived a rich life. You're still going to live a rich life. You're still going to stay current. You're still going to want to paint your bathroom. You're going to still want those new pillows and that new sweater. But get in the habit of moving one out when you've brought one in. And keeping a box is perfect for that. When you buy a new sweater,
that idea.
Right? Just take that one sweater you haven't worn, and then fold it up and throw it in a box, because things are really given. When things are given a new purpose, it's tremendous.
That's what I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, the feel-good side of the items have a second chance at life, and there are a few amazing local organizations that help people with your belongings. Yeah,
so part of the reality of down right sizing is that people don't want what you have, or you think it's worth something that has absolutely no value, Hummels and yard rows and those kinds of collectibles. But things that are given a new life really give you a new life and a new perspective on things. Brown furniture is probably the biggest thing that we have that we just can't get rid of. No one wants to buy it.
Brown furniture?
Brown furniture.
That's the industry term.
Big brown, dresser, nightstand.
I have some of that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Dresser, nightstand, chest of drawers, all match. And then you're going maybe to a smaller space, or it's just in a guest room and you're not going to use it anymore. We work with an organization called Household Goods in Acton, really tremendous organization.
That's where all our brown furniture goes at my house. We love them.
And the thing that's amazing, and we were there a couple of months ago, and to watch families come in and literally sit at a table and pick the table that they want. And I always say, a brown bedroom set is better than no bedroom set.
Absolutely.
And they are thrilled to have it, and to know that it has a new life after that is really amazing. And the same is true with, linens go to animal shelters, or to something like, if they're, still usable household goods. And
you can even do the textiles. You can now recycle your textiles, because I'd be like, no one's going to wear this, and you can recycle it.
But that ugly sweater that's you think no one's going to wear is going to be of comfort to someone else. And I know that the Vietnam vets have a huge need for clothing and clothing drive. And there's a great organization called donationtown.org, and you enter your zip code and it will identify organizations that will come by and pick up things and what they specifically need.
That's great, the pickup, especially for those folks who are trying to right size. Get that right. Who are trying to right size, who are at home and maybe can't get out or can't lift the stuff to the car. There are plenty of organizations that can
put you on a schedule too. If you've committed to having someone come and pick something up on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock,
you're going to do the work.
Make sure that it's there and done at Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock.
And it's all feel good, right? I'm sorry. It's like you feel good, right? Like you said, you open your drawer. I don't know about you, but when I have less cluttered, I feel better. And then, I recently held on to my son's baby clothes for 9 long years and beautiful baby furniture, and I donated it to a woman and children's shelter. And it makes you feel good to help your community. And, I just love everything that you're sharing, and would love for you just to share share with the audience, you know, you guys help people with this process. So how are you guys supporting families and people getting through the right size process?
So first I want to say about the resources, there is no need for anyone to go at this alone. We've helped thousands of older adults effectively go through this process. Even if you just need a guide or information or a resource, on our website we have a Rightsizing with Ease guide, dovetailcompanies.com, under our training and support. There are resources there for you to access. It's all complimentary. One thing I'd like to say is, yes, we are a business. We can be hired to support you through this process. You don't need to. We do a lot of complimentary consultations, connecting people with resources so that they have the information that they need, because our biggest mission today is to help spread the word. This doesn't have to be so hard. There are people here to help you, there are resources to help you, and we're happy to help you navigate that. The way it works at Dovetail is we cannot provide assistance or recommendations until we get to know you. Everyone's situation is different. Every personality is different. To Joe's point, no one should ever feel embarrassed about your current situation. We do actually have a hoarding program here at Dovetail for people that are truly overwhelmed with stuff, which is a very common scenario for many people. And again, you don't need to go at it alone. That's why we're here to help. And it's as much or as little support as you need. Some people just need to hear you're doing a good job, here's some resources. They can take it and run. Other people say yes, because, and Joe, you can explain this, how the process is more effective when you have a non-biased third party there to kind of help move you along.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, husband and wife that have been together for all these years, what's important to one is not important to the other. And if you can divide and conquer with, you know, each spouse, you know, I go with the husband and do the things that address the things that he may have, and someone else goes with the wife, or with the adult child, right? Helping them and saying, you know, you don't have to go through this because it's very emotional for you to do it. Step away from it. Like, go take mom and dad to lunch.
Yeah, because those dynamics really can be problematic.
And again, they have a very, as Erin mentioned earlier, they have a very different view of what their parents' routine is. They still think their parents' routine is when they lived with them 30 years ago, or, you know, what they hear, you know, mom and dad did during the day, when in fact they don't sit in the den. They sit at the kitchen table most of the day, and that's their command central, and that's important to them. So sometimes it's just listening to the client and having them, and we're obligated really through the National Association of Senior Move Managers as certified move managers. We're obligated to have our client be number one, and we listen to our client all the time. It doesn't mean that we don't listen to the adult children, but we're really going to respect what the you know, what the client has to say, and spending that time and getting to know them really gets us to the final, you know, the happiest.
I think that's a big point to hit home as we kind of wrap up the show today. There's an it goes back to the ageism in America, but parents don't want to be parented. And I think we have a responsibility within our society to work with older adults directly, because we all deserve to be heard. We all deserve to have autonomy in our life and what's happening. And I think that's what brings us a lot of joy every day, is working directly with our older adult clients, hearing what's important to them, and then executing a plan with ease.
Yeah, I love that, and advocating for them and explaining to the children, the adult children, who need to know that.
And giving them, oftentimes they step into that role because they feel they have to.
Right.
They always say, oh, thank you. I didn't know I don't have to do this. So it's been great.
That's so wonderful.
This was just so amazing. I feel like we could probably do a second segment with you guys.
You'll have to come back.
So much to offer.
Because you do so much else too. And so maybe another time you could come back and talk about all the other resources you have.
Thank you.
With Dovetail Companies.
And please feel free to reach out. Rightsizing at dovetailcompanies.com, and my email is erin@dovetailcompanies.com. We're happy to help wherever you may be in the process.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much. And thanks for joining us for today's show, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.